Hello everyone. Hello from Dubai. I'm Aristea here in one of the meeting rooms where a lot of excitement went on the last few days through the breakouts, and I'm very happy to be with all of you today on this exciting session on 5G and how 5G can empower the future and make a difference. It's the last day of the workshop, and I'm very happy to give the floor to Baoying to make the necessary introductions. Thanks everyone for joining. Baoying.
Great. Thanks, Aristea, and welcome again, everyone. And I really hope you enjoyed the program in the past few days. I certainly did. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you this session. Together, we will explore how 5G can empower the future and make a difference through the lens of young professionals. There are a few things that we'll be touching upon today. So we'll start with the introduction, and then we'll hear from global experts to talk about the 5G and also the future to set the scene. Then we'll have a 15 minutes breakout session where everyone will get a chance to reimagine your life and also our industries with 5G. Then we'll jump to the panel discussion to consolidate what we have discussed and also get a chance to hear from all those 5G leaders. And next, we'll wrap up with a live 5G demo from Australia, where young professionals will gather in Gold Coast. So that is where my background is, and showcase some of the best 5G technologies in the world. So this webinar is, I'll now introduce our speakers. So this webinar is brought to you by IEC Technical Committee 106, together with our young professionals in Australia. First, I'll introduce Mike Wood, who is the chair of TC 106 and a distinguished professional at Telstra. TC 106 was established, which has the global responsibility for electromagnetic emission, EME, testing standards for mobile phones, devices, wireless networks, and radio communication systems, including 5G. And for Telstra, Telstra is Australia's largest mobile operator and was the third globally to launch 5G. We also hear from Sami Gabriel, Co-Convener, TC16, who is a distinguished engineer at Vodafone. Vodafone is a leading telecommunications company, keeping society connected and building a digital future for everyone. And then we'll hear from a few young professionals from Australia. We have Sami Uddin, wireless network engineer at Telstra. And also we have Stephen Nguyen, technology specialist at Telstra. And lastly, I'll introduce Demster Dacuro, graduate network engineer at Telstra. Before we get started, there are a few things I need to mention as housekeeping rules. First, please post questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand during the Q&A. And second, please actively contribute to breakout session discussions with your group. I know today is the last day, still it's going to be a really eye-opening session, and I hope everyone could contribute quite actively. And lastly, certainly have fun. It's going to be a fun session, so hope everyone will enjoy it. So with no further delays, I'll now pass the floor to Mike Wood to talk about 5G and the future. Mike will give us an overview on the technology, to introduce us to this technology, and also help to set the scene and explain why this is so important around the world. Now I pass to you, Mike.
Well, thank you, Baoying, and thank you to all the young professionals that have joined. And I think you've got your screen share still there, so I might just get you to pop that one off in a sec, Baoying. And also thank you to co-convener of TC 106, Sami Gabriel. We're going to be talking to you today about the benefits of 5G, how it works, and some of the cool features that, and that's really the session. We want to explore with you what the cool features are and really have the young professionals, try and imagine their future world, because you guys are going to be the leaders of the standards development groups, the standards development committees, and the technical innovations going forward. And we'll be watching you to see what the innovations that you bring to the forum are. And most importantly, it is your last day, so have some fun. We'll certainly have a bit of fun as we go, as we present today as well. And of course, later in the session, we're going to cross live to the Gold Coast in Australia with our young professionals, and they'll show you some of the awesome things that you can do with 5G. Now, I'm going to share my screen and just give you, I'm just going to set the scene, show you a couple of slides on how the technology actually works, and then a couple of applications just to get us started, including some really cool ones that I found from Europe as well. Now, I'll just go to the share screen, share desktop, and make sure that that's going to work. And it's always nervous when you do this, because you never quite know if that's going to, I'll just check, someone give me a heads up if you can see it and you're not seeing the presenters as well. Okay, so this is the young professionals' vision for 5G, as was just mentioned before. But really, let me just minimize the presenters here, because for some reason they are on my screen and yeah, that's better. So really, when you think about the benefits to society, there are many benefits. We've listed a few on the side here, but these are some of the ones that you may have heard of. I particularly like the healthcare, the smart energy, and the way that it's going to implement safety features with some of this new technology. When we do the breakout, we're going to show you a couple of things first, but when we do the breakout, this is where we want you to apply your hats with 5 days of young professionals behind you and try and imagine what you think some of this technology can bring. Let me just advance the slide. So how does it actually work? Now, I've been tipped off that there are a couple of 5G engineers amongst you in the group, or people that do work with technology. So you're going to be answering all the questions, and you're going to be tested at the end of the session. So you'll have to pass that test. But for everybody else, at the moment, 5G was launched in 2019. It was obviously, there were trial networks before that, but it was launched earlier than originally planned, and it was done so that it can work in conjunction with 4G. So if you think about it, when you actually connect, if many of you have probably got a 5G phone or a 5G device, when you go to make a connection, all of the signaling layer or the controlling aspects of 5G at the moment is done on the 4G layer. And when you go to make a data connection, say you want to watch a YouTube clip or join a webinar like this, when you connect up for data, the data channel will use a mixture of 4G and predominantly 5G. So you get the really enhanced speeds through the 5G layer, but at the moment, a lot of the signaling and the control is done on the 4G layer. That was so the technology could be brought forward. We had a challenge in standards to initiate earlier standards work on 5G so we could keep up with this earlier deployment of 5G. And we'll talk a little bit about that with Sami Gabriel a little bit later. But what's happening this year is many of the operators and many of the technology providers are introducing 5G standalone, which means that it can work by itself. So all of the control and the data will be unique to the 5G application. It won't be linking in directly with 4G once we go to what's called standalone. So at the moment, it's working with 4G in most applications, and in some applications, it's already switched to standalone, but the majority of users across the world have this combination. In terms of the architecture, it is quite different to 3G and 4G. What we find with 5G is that we've moved to cloud computing or centralized computing or a centralized a centralized core network. But also importantly, we're using edge compute. Now, some of you may know what that is, but it's basically local servers that provide us connectivity, but at the edge of the cell or out towards where the users are. It might be an industrial application in a mine. It might be a small town that's got a computer to provide local service. That's often referred to as edge compute. It's got some significant applications when you're doing tailored 5G for enterprise and for, say, healthcare or industrial type sectors. And we are able, because we've got, centralized core networks, we are able to introduce what's called network slicing, which means that if we want to provide a dedicated service to emergency response services, we could divide or we could segment off the server or segment off the network in terms of the core to give them dedicated access. Now that's going to be really important, particularly going forward when you want to deliver high quality services and, better managed facilities and better managed services. Another key difference is with 5G compared to the older technologies, we've introduced what's called beamforming or beam steering macro networks or base stations that can send a dedicated signal to where the user is. Now, rather than with 4G and sending a signal in all directions in a particular sector, you imagine if you can send a dedicated signal that's tailored to make that connection, you're saving energy, you're saving efficiency, there's less interference, and you actually get a much better connection in terms of the quality. And you don't generate as much, like I said, you don't generate as much interference, but you can also serve more customers. So if you think about going to a football match or a soccer game and you've got tailored beams connecting to the various devices, you actually enhance the capability of the whole network. So all of this put together with a 5G architecture and the new core is what's going to deliver to us enhanced services. One of the ones I didn't mention was very low latency. So like the response time of the core network, particularly when you've got the compute or the core close to where you are, is much, much faster than 3G and 4G. And that's going to really help when you've got, the applications like we'll see later with, security or better safety on roads, ultimately self-driving cars, and we'll show you a couple of demonstrations with that later. I mentioned beamforming before. This is just a graphic that shows how it works. Finally, in terms of spectrum, so the radio frequency bands we use for 5G, typically what we've been doing is we've been using frequencies below 6 gigahertz for the existing mobile networks and typically below 3 gigahertz. So most of our 3G and 4G connections are on the lower frequency bands. As we move to 5G, we're starting to use the mid-band, which is the 3.5 gigahertz band. And that gives us greater capacity and greater, greater range. But ultimately, what's going to provide really enormous capacity and these really awesome data rates will be the millimeter wave or the high band or the high frequency band, which you can see on the right-hand side of this spectrum. And we'll show you some of that live in a minute. Now, while I get ready, the next slide, I want to show you a couple of applications. I wonder what sort of speeds you get on your networks, whether you're on a fixed network, whether you're on a mobile network, and some of you may have 5G. Well, I wonder if you can do a speed test, find a speed test server, do a speed test, maybe pop it in the chat, and then when we have the breakouts and when we have the panel discussion, we can share what experiences we're getting. Now, I'm just going to change to, I'm just going to end that slideshow and show you another one, because this is the one that I'm really excited to show you. You may have seen this before, but this is what we call the triangle of benefits. So at the moment, most of us experience enhanced mobile broadband. In other words, faster speeds and faster connections on 5G. When we introduce the greater capacity, we're going to be looking at being able to connect nearly everything. Now, there's so many estimates of how many things and devices will be connected. I've heard 25 billion to 50 billion by the year 2025. Well, I think it's going to be many. And if you think about nearly everything's going to be connected, it needs to do that over, over the network. So we need the higher frequencies and we need the capacity. And when you get into all of the really quick response times and the applications that are going to, when you've got road safety, self-driving cars, augmented reality and industrial robotics, you need computer systems that can respond instantly. So that's when you will have some of this really low latency application. Now let's just have a look at a quick video that was back in 2019, but it was a glimpse of what's to come. And I've actually tried some of these things, and then I'll just mention a couple so that you should hear the sound with this.
This is the future of 5G happening right now. 5G will enable more immersive educational experiences. The Flame firefighting suit is one such immersive experience. It uses haptics and VR to simulate a realistic firefighting experience without putting firefighters in any danger. That way, when firefighters are called on to use their skills, they'll know exactly what to do, exactly when. Safety is another way that 5G will transform our future. Using a range of connectivity, this little guy will detect sharks in the nearby area and deploy pods to swimmers so that they can safely make it back to shore. That way, lifesavers stay out of danger. 5G will make smooth multiplayer cloud gaming possible as soon as it's available. Plus, it'll put you at the center of the action for all your favorite sports events. And you can even virtually try on that outfit you've had your eye on thanks to Oppo Shopping. The future of 5G is right now. Keep reading to find out just what's possible.
Now, what we saw there was, certainly the enhanced mobile broadband, much greater capacity. When I tried that firefighting suit with the haptics, and when you fired that, virtual gun or that virtual water cannon, it really pushed you back. It really, you could feel that. Now, think of the educational benefits of being able to do training or being able to try real life experiences, using these sort of applications. And we did the shopping experience with the Oppo app where you could walk around and the models or the displays would actually walk out in the area you were in, just holding your phone up. So as soon as you held your phone up, you were experiencing something. Now, there's so many potentials that could lead to. There is one more that I want to show you, and I'm going to go to the web. Now, how many of you, how many of you would be brave enough to get a tattoo with a robot connected over 5G? Now, just stop and think about that for a moment. So if you've got a robot that delivers a tattoo and the tattoo artist is not in the same place and they do it over 5G, would you be game enough to do this? Now, this has actually happened. It was done by, I think it was done in the Netherlands, but I'll just show you what they do and then potentially what this is going to enable. I won't play the whole thing. I'll just play a part of it.
How are you?
I'm good, but I'm a little bit nervous.
Hang on.
Minimalistisch.
If you go back to the essence of tattooing, you need needle, ink and a skin.
It's way better. I think this might actually work.
Straight away from the moment you walk in, I feel your energy. I always try to let you feel my energy. I think your connection is real, and as soon as you tattoo someone, your connection is permanent.
Are you ready?
I'm ready, yeah, definitely. 5G connection looks good.
I think we can go.
Yeah, okay, let's go. But it's less about the tattoo, it's less about the robot arm. It's about enabling new possibilities. Stop.
Nice!
Wow, gewoon de allereerste 5G-tattoo. Maar hoe vet is dat? En nu zit hij gewoon op.
Sorry about that. I'll go back to the screen. Now, I don't know who would be game to get a tattoo by 5G. But we have a little surprise for you. We've set up a room in Dubai. Aristia doesn't know about this yet, but we've actually got a room set up there with a tattoo artist in Australia. So if Aristia could make, oh, actually no, sorry, that's next year's agenda. So I think that's on my run. Sorry, Baoying, you sent me the wrong run sheet. That's next year. We'll have to do that next year. So for the YP leaders that are being elected for 2022, maybe that's one of the challenges. We can see who can get a remote tattoo over 5G at the forum next year. Now, we've got one more thing. I'd like to cross live, if I can, maybe to Sami Uddin, that's on the Gold Coast. And Sami's probably going to be outside our 5G Innovation Centre. And we'll just see where Sami is. And you can just introduce yourself, Sami, and where you are. And it looks like it's getting a little bit darker up there now. It was daylight before, but
yeah.
Over to you, Sami.
Hey,
it was daylight before, but it's turned dark.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me all right?
You're fine. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mike. So yeah, look, welcome to Gold Coast, the home of the 5G Innovation Centre here in Queensland, Australia. So the 5G IT, which is just behind me, is this big building. So this is Telstra's 5G IT. This is where we do a lot of our research and development for 5G related uses, applications, and even the standards. So some of the things that Mike talked about earlier was actually tested and trialed here. And this is also the first place to have 5G switched on. As you can see, we're live outside in the heart of Southport, which is actually one of the new age areas of Gold Coast. So if you pan over to the right, you can see the new smart cities systems that they're building, like the automated trains, trams, the automated fare ticketing system, all the cameras and systems feedback over the 5G network for their analytics and stuff that the council uses here. What I'll also point out is the nursing college to my left. So this is Queensland's nursing college. So a lot of the new age medical devices and things are trialed here. So one day we'll see things like remote robotic surgery and stuff being trialed here. So it's a great place for the 5G IT to be located right in the heart of technological advancements that are being made here in Australia. And yeah, so very soon we'll head inside and we'll demo some of the 5G aspects that Mike talked about, like the spectrum and the beamforming. But yeah, we'll see you then, Mike.
So you haven't got the tattoo robot there, Sami, yet. We'll wait for next year, will we?
Unfortunately, not yet, but we might bring it in. Let's see what the demand is like.
So thanks, Mike and Sami, for this great presentation. And as all of you can see, there are three key advantages with 5G technology. One is there's more capacity. Second, there is less latency. And lastly, there is faster speed. So now on this note, I'll now introduce topics for the breakout sessions. There are two questions for you to think about in your breakout room. One is 5G and life. How do you think 5G could transform your life in cities and also in regional areas? And the second question is 5G and industry. How can 5G make a difference in your industry? Before we let you go to breakout rooms, there are a few things I need to introduce. One is please stay connected because all of you will be directed to breakout rooms for 15 minutes. And second, when you are in the breakout rooms, please assign a spokesperson to share the key takeouts after the breakout room session. And thirdly, each spokesperson will have 1 minute per question. And to help you out, we'll give you a bit of hint. When you think about these two questions and discuss this with your group members, think about what's the most exciting aspect of 5G for you, both for work and for life. This is the topic for the breakout session, and our speakers will check in to different rooms to help you out in some parts. So now, Aristia, could you assign people to different rooms, please?
Yes, the rooms are ready, and there are 5. So I'll be launching all the rooms right now, and please stay connected, and you'll be directed there automatically.
All right. Is everyone back now?
Yes, Baoying, everybody's back.
All right. So let's go back to the topic. So for me personally, I joined a few breakout rooms, and I think some of them have really good conversations. So I really look forward to hearing from each group the answers they prepared. So now let's move to the next slide, which is about the panel discussion. Right, so now we have a discussion, and guess what? We will invite Mike and Sami back to the stage, and also we will have the group leaders from each of the 5 breakout rooms. So if you can turn on your camera, that'd be great. And I must say, I really admire the leaders from each group, because I know how tiring it could be talking in the past 4 or 5 days, and now finally we are there. And I'm pretty sure this is the last breakout room for this whole session. So I think all the leaders all deserve a round of applause. And together with the leaders, we also have Mike Wood and Sami. So the way we're going to run this is in the first part, we'll have each of the leaders from each room to give answer on the two questions. So how we're going to start is we're going to start question 1 from group 1 to group 5, and then when it comes to question 2, we will go back from group 5 to group 1. And in the meantime, Mike and Sami, if there's any comments you want to make after each response, please feel free to jump in. So can I now invite the leader from team 1 to answer the first question, which is how does your group think 5G can transform your life in cities and regional area?
Thanks, Baoying. I believe that's our group. So we had some really good, robust discussions. So what we sort of touched on is similar to the tattoo example. You know, having access to those from remote areas, having access to you know, specialists and medical services that seem to be centered around the urban hubs or the major cities. So, you know, being able to tap into that and use those services is one big element. We also touched on a sensor on everything. So that distributed data collection, just being able to, you know, record and have access to that in that sort of fashion. We also talked about remote infrastructure inspections. We talked about travel, you know, the ability to save on travel, and, you know, more so work from major cities instead of having to be based in more regional centres. And I might leave it at there, Baoying, just so I don't take up the whole session.
Yeah, thanks so much, Colin. That's a great answer, and I agree that the first one always gets the easiest answer. So on that note, Sami, Mike, do you have any comments for me?
I was just going to comment on the medical side. I mean, coming from Australia, it's great to see you again, Colin, another Australian. But you know, with such a large, we have the Royal Flying Doctor Service and remote medical, you know, applications in our rural and regional centres. The ability to have low latency and high bandwidth, so you've got great video resolution and great potential for accessing specialists typically in city areas, is huge. If you think about ambulances as first responders, being able to transfer data to a specialist centre, that's going to, you know, every time we talk to medics, they can't wait to try this stuff. So I think, you know, we've seen that with COVID, but you know, some great thoughts there, Sami. I don't know whether you've got anything to add to that.
I think what I would add is the remote working is something that we've all got used to, but the difference that I think it's also going to make is that city centres don't have to be as dense as they are anymore. The cities can spread out. Because, you know, people move and live close to where their offices and their work is. Now, really doesn't matter. You can go pick a nice area to live in, have a bit of space around you, and be just as connected and participate just as well as someone sitting in an office building or in their home in the city centre.
Yep.
That's a great comment. I guess we always talk about inequality between, you know, suburban areas and also urban areas, and potentially now with 5G we could potentially eliminate the inequality in those areas. So that's fantastic. Next, may I invite the leader from Group 2 to share your thought on question 1, please?
So in Group 2 we come up with a couple of ideas, and I think a couple of the biggest ones is robots in homes and in cities in general. You know, I think we've all seen there's robotic vacuum cleaners and robotic lawnmowers, but I think 5G really will support that. You know, the introduction of robots just in homes generally, in smart homes. You know, that speed, the connectivity. You know, whether it be over the air updates of software where you can connect with your mobile, kind of security systems in as well, really positive. And secondly, it kind of links to all of us, you know, connecting remotely to Dubai for the YP program is VR, like you had with the sports event on the video is, you know, with 5G and VR, we could actually be in Dubai virtually, you know, rather than be, you know, sat in our own countries or on laptops, actually in, you know, the venue, because obviously with the cameras we can see the individual rooms, but seeing the venue as a whole and getting that experience is really, it would be, I think, fantastic in the future.
Cool. Awesome, Jason. Any comments, Mike, Sami?
Well, you go first, Sami. You're on mute.
Sorry. Thinking of the future and the possibilities of visiting all of these places and getting a better experience than just looking at a 2D picture on the screen, that's certainly the way to go. And I think haptic feedback, when you combine that with it, okay, we're going to need a bit more kit with us, but to be able to touch and feel a surface and get some feedback from that remote area, that's going to just enhance the experience so much.
Yeah, no, I agree. I tried that firefighting suit with the haptics, and until you try it, you don't realize the benefit, you know, you don't realize the reality of it. And I remember when we used to be able to fly, I stayed in a hotel in Los Angeles, and a robot brought out, I hopped out of the lift and there was a robot hopping in to take a round of drinks up to a particular floor. And this was a couple of years ago, but I thought, hey, man, this is the future, being served by a robot. But yeah, good points. I like it.
Awesome. And next we'll pass to group 3.
I'm not sure. Are we group 3? Maybe no one's. No.
You are group 3. There we go.
No, yeah. No one's answering, so I'll go ahead and discuss. Actually, we have a lot of inputs for question number 1. Let me go ahead. Let me go ahead and dictate it to the rest. The first is, I think, was already mentioned by group 1, which is remote consultation and telemedicine. The second would be more or less. This is more on the emergency situation wherein the ambulance has an emergency and the traffic light control is properly controlled in order for the ambulance or the emergency vehicle to pass. May it be going towards a hospital or going towards an emergency situation. And then some of it would focus more on the power system and energy sector, making it more energy efficient and more sustainable through smart grids and other applications. And some of the members also provided inputs on national disaster prevention and mitigation. For example, from our end here in the Philippines, most 60% of the time we're in a year we're encountering a lot of typhoons, and just last week we had an earthquake here. So it's something that would really help us a lot in mitigating and probably giving us a heads up on what to do prior to an earthquake or prior to a calamity. And of course, smart lighting and remote learning for the kids. That's all. Thank you.
There's some really good points there, and you know, disasters. We actually had an earthquake 2 weeks. We don't get earthquakes here. We had one 2 weeks ago, and it was the most terrifying thing we've ever had. But you know, in some of our bushfires and some of the floods, we can launch portable, you know, cell sites, whether they be on a drone or whether they be on a cow, which is a trailer type setup, and having that connectivity at the ground, or flying drones with mini base stations so that you've suddenly got that connectivity. You know, huge potentials there. And I know you've been working on some of that stuff, I believe, Sami, as well, haven't you? Some of that remote access connectivity. Yeah,
we've got a disaster relief team run by the Vodafone Foundation who goes out with a couple of suitcases with them, and within a couple of hours of landing on the ground, they've got live networks up and running, supporting the emergency services, giving people affected by the disaster a communication channel back to their loved ones. So yeah, these things can be so easily deployed. We use satellite uplinks, so we can be totally isolated from everything else, but you've got a live 3G, 4G, 5G network where you need it, when you need it.
Great. And now we have group 4.
Hey, Joing. Hi, I'm Rachna here. So to be honest, I did not know that I have to answer only question 1. So we actually kind of brainstormed for both the questions. So let me start with the industry, what I think the 5G can transform, which it has already done, you know. I use HoloLens like anything. I don't visit office every day, but I can exactly see what is happening in my machine through HoloLens technology. I'm hoping that you are aware what exactly it is that, you know, which helps in maintenance and doing the things. So it's like eyes for the person who is not there at the location. I also use quite a lot in digital twin. So to get, you know, to get the life of my machines, which are working, how much, and they predict it for me. So I can plan their prediction maintenance. I can judge how much life it's gonna have so that I can plan my inventory. I work in lab, so I use lot of lab automation where the things which are very manual now, it's easier to automate with the help of 5G. I have seen surgery happenings with the 5G, so for sure. We have a lot of switch gears for the protection, you know, which can actually save your life during short circuit. They are going to transform our life with the 5G technology. And of course, we are coming up with the digitized transportation, which will give a real-time access so that we can avoid accidents. Could be for your trains, could be for your buses and all. In rural area, if I see that a lot of energy trading would happen. Tattoo we already saw. We also got an example of remote automated farming and the dairy farm. And of course, the smart grid, how it's going to change with this technology.
Yeah, you've raised some really good points again. And I think people don't realize yet how many devices are out there and how many will eventually be connected. And, you know, one thing as network designers, and Sami will comment on standards in a minute, but we've got to work out a way to make sure the capacity is there. So all of these devices can connect. Because really 4G is at the end of its, you know, it's full, and this is where the 5G bandwidth needs to be added. But there's some really good points you made.
Sure.
Cool.
I'd just like to pick up on the farming one.
Yeah.
This is something so key to so many different countries, and all over the world we see the same farming demands. I think a farmer today is so reliant on technology when 10, 20, 30 years ago, it was just almost stuck in the Middle Ages, how it's been done for many years. But the technology has now improved their efficiency hugely. And that's what's needed to keep our population going.
Absolutely.
And cool. Michael, probably to answer one more thing, you know, we are talking about the connected devices, but with the 4G, we still had a lot of, you know, issues. That's why you see out of all the IoT connected devices available, only 7% of them are actually connected. So I'm hoping with the 5G, we'll have more and more connected devices, which we can actually leverage in the real world.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thanks, Regina. And lastly, we have group 5.
Then you might need to name the people because we lost our group numbers. So
I guess if you haven't spoke, your group haven't spoke, can you just let me know?
No, I'm aware, but I'm just hoping another team knows their group number, so they are not waiting for that. Yeah.
I think group 5's the one I visited right at the beginning.
Stephanie, please go ahead.
There you go.
Sorry, I've been trying to get off mute for a little while now. That was not working. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. And it's still partially working. Okay. We focused more on the industry side of things with our conversations, but when we were talking about lifestyle and things like for our everyday lives, we're all talking about how mostly that we are all looking forward to be able to have access to 5G, specifically not in cities, but in the rural areas, because that's going to be kind of the biggest hard-hitting portion of it and is really going to change lives and affect our everyday living when it's not just in cities. Cities are already kind of expanding and booming as they are, but the real changes and things that are going to happen is really to the rural areas that don't have this kind of access right now. But from a city perspective, just the interconnectivity, really just kind of getting you the analytics and the details and things that you can obtain from just everything and take all that information and data and just turn it into more innovation and more details, more just everything, just expanding with all of that data is just really going to change so much.
I don't think people realize the power of data analytics until you can get, like you were saying, until you can get it. Then you're going to see the use cases coming along. And you touched on that point about the rural connectivity. It's exactly right. We go to rural Australia and it's, you know, when can I get this? I want to be the same. I don't want the digital divide. And the farming sector, they're just itching. I mean, we've got some, you know, experimental farms running with high connectivity, and the turnaround there in a rural setting is phenomenal. But yeah, thank you. That's really interesting.
Awesome. Sami, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to pick up again on the rural side. We almost seem to leapfrog some of the technologies in the rural areas. Here, many of those really rural areas struggled with dial-up on the telephone for many, many years. And until fairly recently, then satellite providers tried to step in and give them some sort of interim solution. And now I can go out into really the woodlands and find a cottage in the middle of nowhere, and they've got gigabit connectivity. It's either fiber coming in and then a local access point being provided, but a lot of small villages of just a few houses get the fiber coming in, and all of a sudden they've got a 5G access point as well.
Awesome, Sami. And also I realized that time flies very fast, and we may have to wrap up this this part fairly quickly. So what I'll do now is with second question, how can 5G make a difference in your industry? I'll do the same thing. However, if you could only share one thing in one industry, that would be awesome. And also for Mike and Sami, I'll invite you to comment at the end once everyone finished the answers. All right, so this time we may go with group 5 first. Is that going to be you again, Stephanie?
No, it's going to be Shimon, yeah.
All right, this is Simon from group 5. For our group, we have discussed a lot about this industry using. Seems like for people from our group, they're from Asia, European, and United States. Lots of people have been used a lot for 5G, especially when they're on site doing inspection, because 5G could send a more detailed like photos or videos back to the operator room so that people can like remotely help what's going on site. But seems like for our group, we have like 3 main points where we really want to know more about 5G. One is the cost, because right now, as long as my knowledge is, 5G is much more expensive than 4G. And second one is reliability, which is kind of related to cybersecurity as well. I believe Sami has already answered that part when we were doing the discussion. And the third point is if the 5G could be fully covered all over the area, just as the topic we just discussed about the rural area as well as the cities. And that's it for our group. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Simon. And now I pass down to group 4 and see if you have anything else to add on this question. And please add only 1 point. Is there anyone from group 4 will add anything? All right, so I think you guys probably shared everything about question 2 in your answer to question 1. So we will now move to group 3.
Okay, let me go ahead and just answer it. Actually, from our industry, I think we have a mixed participants coming from different industries. But I think one of the more applications that we are familiar with is really the application for smart grid. For example, myself and Fumuzi are from different manufacturers of electrification equipment. So it's something that that is important for us to have a standard and for our equipment to communicate with each other. Primarily because we are able to have remote monitoring and control of different equipment once these equipments or switch gears, transformers, instrument transformers are able to communicate with each other. It's really more of the benefit of the end user and also of the entire community.
Yeah, good example. Thanks, Job. And the next we'll have group 1. I believe that's you, Jason.
Yeah, so I think if I was to make a single point, I think it would be, safety in a lot of industries. I think no matter what industry we're in, we can all think of one operation or one process that that we're involved in, which is quite dangerous. So a couple of points, a couple of examples were, in kind of laser welding operations, you have multi-kilowatt power lasers, which can be quite dangerous to humans, both optically, in other ways, and also in kind of the rail industry, you've got multi-kilowatt power lines running overhead. By removing the human element of kind of maintenance processes or testing process or anything like that, and replacing that with robots and having the humans elsewhere, you're taking away fully the risk of health to humans by taking away from those hazards.
Awesome. Cool. I think lastly, Colin, take us home.
Thanks, Baoying, and Jason stole my thunder there. We were going to touch on safety as well. What I might do is I'll talk to another one that sort of links the question 1 and 2. We talked about the fact that not being able to travel during COVID, commissioning plant remotely has saved clients a lot of money in paying for travel of the commissioning engineers and those teams. So we had that savings to the client style element of industry. And then conversely, we also had another one which touches more on the social side of things, but we were talking about 5G being implemented and these new technology that hopefully making some of the other technologies like 4G, hopefully they become cheaper for some of the other developing countries who don't have access yet to 5G, but can start benefiting from the other generation systems.
Good point, Colin. And cautious about time. So to you, Mike and Sami, I'll give you guys time for one comment on everything you said.
Look, some great insights there, and the comment I was going to make, and Sami can build on this, is just you're at the IEC Young Professionals program, and it's all about standards and how standards can help. We had to do something quite sort of revolutionary in standards, and that was we were told the 5G networks were coming online 2 years earlier than originally scheduled. So how do you develop faster standards? And it's about applying new methods, applying new ways of thinking. And, in your journey as young professionals, one of the things I'd challenge you with is you'll get involved in some committees that are, they're set in their ways, they do things a set way, but there will be ways you can improve that. And that's, going to be the way of the future. If you think about COVID, we've instantly, jumped to probably a generation in terms of connectivity, or we've advanced it at least anyway. But, you guys are going to be our standards leaders of the future. So it's about building on that standards aspect. But Sami, do you want to bring it home with any comments on that?
Well, I'm not going to carry on standards just yet. We'll talk about that shortly. But picking up on Colin's last point, how we've evolved with everything, and particularly with COVID. I'll give you a quick example. I'm in the midst of a lab move at the moment, and I've got 3 delicate bits of kit to move. 2 of them, the manufacturers are going to be sending out personnel to help dismantle it, move it, recommission it in the new one. And the 3rd manufacturer said, look, we've now gone completely automated. We'll send you a couple of instruments out. You put us on a live feed and we'll video talk you through everything. You give us some readings off of the instruments. If you can connect the instruments with Bluetooth to your phone, we'll get the readings directly. And they just handhold me through doing that. And if we hadn't had COVID and driven us to this innovation in there, they could have been years away from offering a service like that.
Absolutely.
So it's the thinking out of the box and getting it implemented quickly.
Yep. That's a really good comment. And on that note, what I'll do now is conclude on this part, and then we'll move on to the live demos. So now I'll pass the floor to Sami, Stephen, and Demster, who will show us what they are doing in the 5G lab in Gold Coast, Australia.
All right, so we should be able to see Sami from the Gold Coast, or Stephen might have the camera. And we'll wait till they connect, and I'll get you to introduce the 5G Innovation Centre. We're just waiting for the camera to come online. And it's this.
Can you hear us, Mike?
We can hear you, we can see you now. Yep, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, so we're just setting our camera back up on the tripod.
It looks good, can see it. Yep, perfect.
Come around, Stephen. So look, yeah, so we're inside now, and I'm joined here by Demster, Dacuro, and Stephen Nguyen, who are our other 2 young professionals here. It's a bit late at night, so it's just us 3 now, so please bear with us if there's any camera or microphone issues. But yeah, so pretty soon we'll be introducing our 2 young professionals and what they do. But first, what we want to do is a 5G live demo. So the stuff that Mike talked about a bit earlier, just want to grab that camera. So we've been talking a lot about what 5G can do and all the technical capabilities. So one of the things we want to demo here today is the 5G millimeter wave, the Telstra 5G millimeter wave. So up until now, especially in our older and LTE networks, we are sort of bandwidth limited in like the lower frequency ranges of up to about 2 or 3 gigahertz. So what 5G has done with the FR2 frequency 2 range has introduced a whole lot more bandwidth available in the millimeter wave range. Now Telstra has been lucky to acquire 1,000 megahertz of that, and we are going to put it to use today to show you. So obviously what you get with millimeter wave is awesome speed. So we'll just demonstrate that. And what we have on the left here is a spectrum analyzer showing you that frequency range. So here we go. We have a speed test running of 1.8, an easy 2 gigabits per second. And what we're looking at here is 8 blocks of 100 megahertz. That's 800 megahertz total bandwidth being used. Now, in our older traditional networks like LTE, we don't really go past 100 megahertz usually. So that just demonstrates how much more bandwidth and capacity we have on our FR2 millimeter wave networks. And what that translates to is things like ultra low latency. We've got 7 milliseconds ping, 1.8 gigabits per second download speed, all over a small millimeter wave battery powered device. So yeah, that's one of the cool things we wanted to show off today. Yeah, and it's this sort of technology that sort of enables all the other use cases and applications that we've been talking about tonight, as well as awesome speeds like, in excess of 2 gigabits per second. So yeah, look, that was our little demo that we had prepared. And now what we'll do is talking about those use cases and applications. I think our young professionals can get a bit into that. So we have Demster Dacuro with us here today. So he's been with us for about a year. Demster, do you want to give us a little intro about yourself and what you do at Telstra?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sami. Hi, everyone. My name is Demster, and I am a 2021 network engineering graduate at Telstra. Before Telstra, I was studying electrical engineering at the Queensland University of Technology. And then I joined Telstra around 2019 as an intern. And then Telstra offered me a graduate position right after my internship. I am currently working in a telco cloud team. My team mainly focuses on the virtualization of our core network by moving it into the cloud. And by doing so, we are creating a more scalable, resilient, and low latency 5G network. My work mainly revolves on monitoring the cloud service. I incorporate different data analytics techniques such as machine learning to analyze trends, predict faults, and plan capacity. And we use all of this information for planned upgrades and scheduled maintenance. So what is it like for a young professional to work on 5G? I think it can be quite challenging, but also rewarding at the same time. Challenging in the sense that technology evolves really fast. This means that you have to keep learning and be up to date with the industry standards. On the other hand, I think it's quite rewarding to see your work contribute to other cutting edge projects, such as this one behind me, which is a smart bike helmet. The helmet, so the helmet transmits real-time video over 5G and is then analyzed in the cloud. When an obstacle or a hazard is identified, the helmet sends an alert to the rider to improve their reaction time and ultimately prevent an accident. And this is thanks to the super low latency connectivity that is enabled by Telstra's 5G network. Thanks, Sami.
No worries, Demster. That was very good. So what we'll do now is move to our next young professional, Stephen Nguyen. And we also want to pan just over a bit to our other screen. So look, we've spoken a lot about the applications that 5G has made available to us. One of the coolest things I think that we can show here is the 5G flying car. Believe it or not, yes, it's a real thing, as you can see. So this is one of the projects that Telstra is working on and applying 5G to. So it's a partnership with Airspeeder and Telstra. And we're very lucky tonight to have with us a graduate who actually works in the department of Telstra that works on this 5G flying car. So Stephen is lucky enough to be in the sort of crossover area between engineering and solution development, solution engineering, where you can sort of take the technical stuff of 5G and apply them to use cases like flying cars and stuff like that. So Stephen, if you want to give us a little intro about yourself and what you do.
Hi everyone, my name's Stephen. Thanks for the introduction, Sami. So similar to Demster and Sami, I came from an engineering background, coupled with a business finance degree, and I always wondered how my skill sets could be useful at Telstra. And so I decided to go into their enterprise and government team, actually selling solutions to other big organizations. And actually one of them came from the Telstra Public team, which was an Airspeeder project where they're using the 5G technology to build the future of racing. So as you know, we have F1 Formula cars, but from those projects, we were able to come up with different safety devices for cars that we use on the roads nowadays, all because of F1 racing, right? So what is the future of transport? The future of transport is you're going to have flying transportation. So with this F1 Airspeeder project, they'll be using those technologies to capture data, whether it be through 5G or through the Telstra network. We can use that data to analyze how we can adapt to the future of transportation. So that was one of the projects in the team. Oh, apologies.
All right, and Stephen, apologies for the little camera drop gimbal. So yeah, Stephen, thanks very much for the little rundown on what it's like working in Telstra and actually applying these sorts of technologies to 5G. What I wanted to just sort of talk about is a bit more details on this flying car and exactly what 5G is doing. So as you know, with 5G and the 3G code standard that's defined 5G, we have V2V, so vehicle to vehicle, and V2I, vehicle to infrastructure communication standards, specifically the PC5 interface that gets used for projects and applications like this. So this is the sort of stuff that standards, communities and groups that put together, which then actually gets applied into cool projects like flying cars. Also, we have things in use here like the 5G local network and Edge Core. Again, these are new things that are sort of enabled by 5G that then, in turn, enable projects like flying cars. And the reason this flying car needs it is because amongst all its other awesome specs, it's sending terabytes worth of telemetry and race operation data per flight. So this is where the need for high bandwidth, like what we just demonstrated before, 2 gigabits per second. I know that sounds like a really big number. Who would ever use it? Well, here we are. Flying cars need at least 2 gigabits per second or more. So that's how we're applying 5G to actual real-world applications. But also, in addition to the car, to actually include the audience, we're also allowing things like AR and VR to work across over 5G. So that gives you a much more real-time immersive experience for the spectators to take part and be engaged with this sort of new age, awesome technologies like flying cars. So yeah, look, that's really what we wanted to cover on with 5G flying car. And just give you a little bit of a rundown. It's more than just fluff talk. It really is an application of 5G that needs 5G for this sort of cool stuff to work. So yeah, Mike, that's really what we had to show tonight.
So I've got one question. When do we get to have a drive in the flying car? Because that looks amazing.
Well, I mean, our lab's a bit too small, but hey, look, as it develops, certainly, I don't think we're that far away from being able to use this sort of stuff and trial it. Certainly under the pretense of 5G testing. So yeah, who knows? We might be able to do it pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, look, Sami and Stephen and Demster, look, thank you very much for just a quick look around the 5G IC. It's an area where we can sort of do experiments. As young professionals, we're not really bounded by anything. So if we want to try something out, the network's there, we've got all of the different frequencies, we can spin something up, try it, then we go out and try it in the real world outside, as Sami was showing that local area before. And one of the most exciting things for me is that you guys, like the young professionals that are on this webinar, you're going to be the future of the technology. And, when I retire, if I buy a flying car, I'll know where it was, where it was first tested. But Baoying, look, I know we're coming close to time, but there might be some questions from the participants. I don't know what speeds they got when they tried it, or Sami, Gabriel, you might have a couple of questions you want to throw in, a couple of comments. I know you've worked in a lab, Sami, and you're more than welcome when COVID's finished to come out to us out here, and we could try some of this. But Sami, I don't know whether Gabriel, I don't know if you've got any comments to throw in at this point.
Well, I think the first thing I'd say is, while Telstra has an absolutely excellent facility there, and so does Vodafone and many others, but really the message to the young professionals are, get out there and just try it. Yeah. Having an environment like that where we've got theory and we've all worked on theory before, but taking that theory to the next step of try it in practice, it may go wrong. Doesn't matter, you learned something. Version 2 will be so much better. But there is nothing that theory can do that practice cannot trump. So just get out there, get your hands dirty, get messy with it. Grab whoever you can. And that's one of the things we certainly do in the office here, is we sometimes just call a team meeting for 10 or 20 minutes for lots of people to come in from different disciplines and just throw ideas at this. If we're stuck with it, we don't know how to get the flying car off the ground. We actually turned out to find we've got a nationally rated drone racing expert within our team that no one else knew about, but he's got sort of a national and a world ranking. So they brought great insight into some of our drone projects, which was an area totally outside of their normal working area.
No, look, really good point, Sami, because, the point about being an experimenter and just getting out there and trying it, whether you have a facility like this or you don't, it's about finding what you can. And, we're very fortunate that we built one of these facilities, so it's enabled us to do this like you've done, Sami. And of course, that comes back to standards, because, you can have all of these great facilities and you can have these great connected networks, but you've got to build them and make sure that the standards are in place. And so, the YPs on this call, you've got the benefit of both. You're looking ahead, but you've also got the benefit that, hey, we need to make sure it all works safely, and that's the IEC vision, to be connected in a future world that's safely connected. Baoying, I don't know if there's any questions you want to raise, or if anyone would like to suggest what speeds they were able to get on their network. I think, Sami, you managed to clock about 800 where you were. I don't know where Sami, Gabriel got about 800, yeah. But
so I'm just on a commercial 5G network here, and regularly clocking between 6, 7, 8, just under a gigabit download speeds, and about 150 meg upload speeds.
That's pretty good. Does anyone?
I'm pretty jealous because for me, I got 30.
Well, look, you know, you can see some of these awesome speeds, but that's got to be divided amongst, you know, everybody. And then, you know, someone mentioned the rural areas before, and it's about that edge compute, bringing all of that capacity out to where people want to use it. And you just, you know, you can see that video with people in the background with the flying cars. I think that's in South Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is done at our trial location in Adelaide, South Australia.
It is in South Australia, yeah. So, Baoying, look, I know we're running short of time, and you know, I'm looking forward to the remote tattoo for Aristia next year, and I'm not sure who's going to be driving it, but Baoying, I'll hand back to yourself to help us wrap it up.
Yeah, awesome, and thanks again, Sami, Stephen, and Demster. I'll just share my screen now to conclude. All right, so it's quite amazing, I guess, to see all those live demos from the live and hearing all those fascinating things the Telstra YPs presented to us. I think from all the sessions we heard from all the YP leaders, it is quite safe to say that regardless you're talking about smart cities or future of transportation or smart farming, 5G will play the backbone and the enabler for all of them. And it is quite inevitable that 5G will eventually change lives and also change all of our industries. And to conclude, I want to quote what Sami Gabriel said, that is for young professionals, what is our roles in the 5G journey? And really, based on what Sami told us, is really just to try it out and learn from practice. That is very important. And now, on that note, I'll conclude this session. And before I do that, I'll say a big thank you to Mike Wood, Sami Gabriel from TC 106, and also Steve, Sami, and also Demster from Telstra in Australia, and Aristia from IEC, and plus, most importantly, all the young professionals here who are with us today and participated to share your ideas. It is marvelous to get everyone's input on this pretty amazing idea. And on that note, I'll conclude this. And thank you, and good luck with your future with your future endeavor.
Fantastic, everyone. See you later, and good luck. We'll see you next year.
Thanks, everyone.